Welcome to The Real with Joseph Labman. I am Joseph Labman. Thank you for tuning in to this episode of The Real, taking time out of your day to come watch this episode. I really appreciate that. If you haven't subscribed already, please subscribe for me. I'd really appreciate that as well. That's the best way to support this channel and help me grow my content and grow this channel to where I'd like it to be. Everybody hit the like button for me on the way in on this video today. That also helps promote this video more in the algorithms, helps grow this channel more as well. Please share this content. I would really appreciate that. My guests would as well. If you would please share this episode with someone you know that maybe is interested in the topic we're talking about today. Please leave a comment below as well. We'd love to hear your guys' feedback. You can interact with myself and the guest on the panel and the live chat as well. Whatever we're talking about, just leave a comment there in the live chat. Pop in and say hello. We'll put it on the screen for you. And yeah, without further ado, let's get to the show. Welcome back to The Real with Joseph Labman. I am Joseph Labman, your host. Appreciate you guys for tuning in today on this Wednesday. Like I said there, if you haven't subscribed already, please subscribe. Hit the like button for me. It's the best way to support my channel and help me grow my content and fight the algorithm. So I really appreciate that. And leave a comment below after today's video. I'd love to hear your guys' feedback. Your guys' feedback really gives me more, helps me with future episodes and expanding on certain topics and certain points and things like that. So please leave your feedback. I would really appreciate that as well. So, more than anxiety episode today for you guys. Talked last week, did a lot more sports, and then I did a more. I don't know how to describe that one I did on the P Diddy incident on Friday, but I'd say really real and raw. It just kind of said a lot of things I felt need to be said. So go check out those episodes from last week as well. But back to more of the more than anxiety um, mantra today and just that mentality. What is more than anxiety? More than anxiety, I learned from my man Dennis Simpson, the anxiety guy, who also, by the way, if you haven't checked out the book yet, go get the book, 101 Short Lessons for an Anxiety-Free Life from the anxiety guy. You can get it on Amazon today. But being more than anxiety, more than our, really what it says, more than anxiety, more than our fear, more than our anxiety symptoms, more than our intrusive thoughts, more than our emotions, which is what I want to touch on today. And as you see in the title today, how to stay balanced emotionally and not believe everything you feel. And I know a lot of people out there can really relate to this, whether you go through anxiety or just day to day life. There's a lot of people out there right now, especially in the last, I'd say recently, in the last couple of years, just seems like more people are just more stressed out. You know what I mean? A lot more baggage, a lot more things to do in their day to day tasks. Just, the more people I talk to nowadays, I just feel like there's more people just very busy in everything they do, just very overwhelmed, just very overworked, very stressed, just emotionally kind of out of whack. I think a lot of people just don't really know how to deal with certain emotions sometimes. And I could totally relate to that. I think we all at some point in our life has had to learn to deal with certain emotions, whether it's anger, sadness, uh, that can maybe a depressing feeling, just um, even being happy sometimes can lead you to be sad. You know what I mean? Just you can be very high and low, and but a lot of people though, and give you a little backstory of myself real quick before I share a videotape from a man, Aaron Cartwright, who did a perfect video on all this. I found on his YouTube channel a couple years back. I think he did this in 2020. I'm gonna play that video for you guys today. It's an 8-minute video, and Aaron really breaks it down perfectly about emotions and how to let yourself kind of regulate and balance out emotionally. But tell you guys about myself real quick in kind of my journey with my emotions and going along with my anxiety and stuff like that. For me, I was always a perfectionist. I grew up around people who, and I could say it's not because they've said it too, like some of my authority figures growing up were perfectionists, just not by their own doing, just by circumstance and, certain things growing up. They became perfectionists, and I started becoming a perfectionist myself. I went to private school growing up. I played 3 sports. There was a lot of high expectations and standards for me. Um, in a good way. Everybody around me meant well for me. Everybody wanted me to succeed. I just think sometimes growing up, you guys go back and listen to my dad on on this episode. My mom and my dad both did an episode recently as well. My dad's episode of Christmas, and you go back to listen to my one I did with my sister recently, and kind of how it was her first year in high school this year, and just kind of how we helped her guide her through the year and how she handled it. And a lot of that, what my parents learned from to help her this year is what they learned from me. because I was the first child. Um, but again, growing up though, there was a lot of times where I just felt, looking back, I was probably doing a little. We were doing too much as a family, and I think a lot of that for me developed some of my perfectionism. Just kind of like, because I always felt like it was always do. Yeah, I feel like a lot. I feel like a doer at some points in my life, especially in middle school. There was a time in seventh grade I was playing football and basketball at the same time, staying up to 1 in the morning, right, doing my homework. And at the same time we're competing for a national championship. Then another time you're expected to, the basketball season is starting, so we got to get going on that. We got to get off to a good start. It was just a lot of. That's just an example, but there's just a lot of. Sometimes I think my parents and we've even said this now. I think sometimes people put way too much on their plate, but also way too many unrealistic expectations, especially on children and kids. I think parents sometimes can put too much on that on kids, and kids can start becoming perfectionists. And I see this a lot, saw this a lot, even with a lot of people I grew up with. Luckily for me, I had two amazing parents that always worked through it with me. We would talk, and they would ask me what I liked and didn't like. Especially as I got older and all that stuff. We'd been learning from a lot of my incident, and like I said, we would help my sister now with her doing new things and going to new school and all that, but doing new extracurricular activities and stuff like that. But I see a lot of people though, man. They just way too much. Way too much on their plate, and just way too much pressure on a lot of these kids, especially in middle school, even in high school and college too. Just a lot of pressure, a lot of just expectations, and it's good to have goals and to push people to be the best version of themselves and to set high standards. I think it's good to you have that, but are they realistic? Is it really what that person truly cares about? Do they desire to do it? Do they really like what they do? It's like somebody who plays sports. They play football. Are they doing it just because they want to get paid, or are they doing it because they actually for the love of the game? The guys that love the game are the ones that are the most successful and actually make the most money. The guys that just want to do it for money, for fame, for clout, their careers don't really last long. A lot of them. Now, some guys don't, just because it's a tough sport to play. But even at any level, high school, college, now, especially now with the NIL and in the NFL, you have to really love what you do, and everything in life. You have to love what you do. You have to have a passion. Are you serving God's purpose in your life? That's how I view it. Like for me, my greatest or the greatest thing that I love doing is helping other people, serving. And I've really developed that appetite more in the last 2 years, just helping other people, serving, giving back. Because I've seen all that it's done for me in return and helped me grow my life, not only just mentally, physically, emotionally, mentally, physically, and emotionally, but spiritually as well. My relationship with God has gotten closer because of it. And, you have to find what you like to do. But I think a lot of times, though, my perfectionism made me not only externally in the external world, my sports, whether it was school, maybe you're somebody out there as a job, whatever it is, we look at those things, but internally it can start to mess with you as well. And that's my perfectionism did to me. And why do I say that? Because I would start to feel angry, especially when I was in my deep anxiety years, for instance, like in my bad years, when I was in, probably 18, 19, 20 years old, 21, 22 years old, somewhere in there, probably, I'm trying to think, 17 to 21 years old, I'll put it in there. So, 16 maybe, but those years, especially those years, if I felt sad, I would label myself as a sad person. I identified with whatever I was feeling. It's because I was a perfectionist, and I would start to question, why am I feeling sad? Why am I feeling so angry? It was constantly why? But all that did was create more friction in my mind, which in turn, once that friction was created with my mind, now I was in battle with my body. My fight or flight, my defense mode of my body started to wonder, what's going on here? Do we need to act on something? Are we in danger? Are we in trouble? And I started to bottle up those emotions as well. And so a lot of those emotions I was feeling, it would go from a thought to why, and then it would be questioning, why am I thinking this? And then I would feel, right? It starts with your mind. So if you think something angry, sometimes you're angry about something, you can feel it in your body. You can feel that tension, that rage, or you can feel that anger for it. Or if you're sad about something, maybe you just got some bad news, or you're sad about something, or you're upset about something, right? You feel sad. It's like when we see something good, we feel happy, right? We feel joyful. It all connects to the mind and the body. And so, but a lot of times for me, what I did in those years as well, I would start to hold things internally. I would bottle up the emotions, but my perfectionism also would be driving me nuts because I would be sitting there going, I need to feel a certain way for me to go do things. And this is what in turn caused my agoraphobia. A lot of it because I wouldn't want to go do things or go back and try to challenge myself and, leave the house once and for all, or go do something I haven't done in so long, go back to live my life because I didn't feel a certain way yet. I still felt kind of down. I was still holding on to the past and feeling depressed about that. I was still feeling angry about something that happened the other day. I was feeling sad about something. If I didn't feel 100% great, I wasn't going to leave the house because I was being a perfectionist. And so, or I would avoid certain situations, interactions with certain people because if I didn't feel right to do it, I just avoided it. And so, but again, I'm the one that was bottling up a lot of these emotions. And a lot of times these bottled up emotions can lead to dizziness, feeling tired. A lot of times, you feel if you're angry or something like that, or you're sad, a lot of times afterwards, like the next day or a couple hours after, you feel really tired right after, you know what I mean? Your body just feels drained, like you need a nap. You need to go home and just lay down and rest. Tension, like I said earlier, for me, tension headaches in my mouth, my grinding my teeth, in my arms, my back. I felt all this stuff, and a lot of times too, this can lead to a depression as well and it did for me. And because perfectionists oftentimes become depressed people because you're always trying to strive for something that's not realistic. And so what happens when you don't attain it? Like for me, if I didn't feel great and wasn't able to go out and let's say I got invited to go out to dinner somewhere. I'm going back to those years, and my perfectionism would say, well, I'll think about it. I'll try to go. And then as the time got closer for me getting ready to decide if I wanted to go out to dinner or not with people, I would start to get anxious and I would start to feel a certain way. And I would start to I was like, oh, geez, I need to avoid this feeling. I need to avoid this interaction because then it turned into what if? What if I go and embarrass myself? What if I have a panic attack? What if? And then it got to the point where, like I said, I would be so anxious leading up to it that I would be like, I'm not going. I would just avoid it now. I'm not going to go. And that's it. I'm just not doing it. And then later on, I'd feel horrible about it. And I'd start to get down. I'd start to feel depressed. And I'd be like, how am I ever going to get out of this? And I'd start talking myself in a bad way, in a negative manner. And it was just this never ending cycle. And that also can make you depressed as well because you're just like, where's the light at the end of this tunnel? And so it wasn't until I learned that, and I had to kind of learn the hard way, like a lot of people do. Sometimes you have to learn the hard way to really understand what the truth is of the situation you're in. And, if that's what it was for me, and I had to finally learn that by starting the show, doing my first episode really helped me a lot, and just kind of doing a lot of things where I surrendered to the situation. And I allowed myself to feel what I wanted to feel, and I said it's okay. And I had good support people around me, and I just said it. You know what? It also takes a bit of courage as well, and that's what has helped me with this as well. Is what? I don't have to feel perfect. I don't have to be perfect to please anybody. I don't have to be a certain person for anybody. I don't have to feel a certain way to go do things. I don't have to be perfect in anything. It's okay to not be okay. And once I started to adapt that mindset and live it out slowly, step by step, day by day, then I started to really get over this a lot more, and my emotions started to kind of balance out. I guess you could say, yeah, my emotions started to balance out. And what I mean by that is whether I was feeling, happy one minute, maybe later on I was feeling angry. I didn't, you know, I didn't identify with either. I stayed neutral, and it also didn't. Whether I was having a good day or a bad day, I just didn't identify with it. I just said I had a good moment or I had a bad moment. If that makes sense. So basically, what I'm saying is, let me rephrase. If I was having a happy moment, if I was feeling happy, it was just for a moment. I'd say it's a happy moment. If I was feeling sad or angry or something, I'm just having an angry or sad moment. But it didn't make up my day. I didn't identify with it anymore. That's what I meant to say. And once I started to do that and do those things, then I started to realize that it's okay to feel angry. It's okay to feel sad. Now, is it a process for some people? Yes, it's been a process for me, especially with that perfectionism mentality that I grew up with and kind of, acted upon and I thought was normal. But all it did was put more pressure and stress on me. And the one thing about being perfectionist too, with especially with your emotions and how it messes with your emotions, the goalpost always moves. You know what I mean? It's like if you look out in the real world right now, the world constantly always puts pressure on you. Social media, people feel this is also what causes a lot of people's emotions as well. People feel like they have to rush into certain things like relationships and jobs and all this stuff. And they think they have to do it to feel accepted because in the social media, especially like apps like TikTok and, you know, uh, Instagram, things like that. You watch if you people sit there all day and watch that stuff, you start to believe it, and it taps into your emotions as well. Because a lot of it is sight and sound, and it taps into your emotions, and you start to think and believe, like, man, I really need to live my life like this. Like I'm not good enough, or I'm behind on certain things, and all that's complete BS. And all that does is just keep you in that cycle, like I was in. And the goalpost always moves, though. Social media, the world, it's never good enough. It's like it's very trendy, very up and down. There's nothing very permanent. There's nothing very real, really. A lot of what you see nowadays is fake. It's not authentic, and you see this all the time. These like celebrity relationships online. These people act like they're the happiest people, married people ever, and everybody's like, "Oh, look at them." And then 2 years later, they're divorced or broken up, and everybody's like, "What happened?" It was never what it was made out to be. But a lot of people now, that's the real life because a lot of people have chosen to model their life after that. Kind of go back to what I was saying on Friday, my video I did then. But that also messes with your emotions because your emotions vary up and down. You're never really very high and very low, but you don't. It's hard for somebody to really think when they're constantly sporadic and scattered in their thinking and being led by the outside world. Especially if you let social media and stuff like that dictate your thinking and who you are, what you do. That's your identity. Your identity has to be. For me, my identity is in Christ and God, or whoever, if you don't, whatever you believe in. But your identity also has to be, who do you want to be? Who are you as a person? What do you want? What does Joseph want to do? What does he desire for his life? Or what do you desire for your life? Ask yourself that question. Who do I really want to be? Am I gonna allow myself to just be thrown around and let my emotions be led in different directions? Then you're probably never gonna really um, achieve the things you want to achieve, because especially in terms of overcoming your anxiety and healing in that area, because you'll be like where I was. You'll be stuck in that cycle because you're never allowing yourself to try something different than what you've always done. And that's what you have to have courage. You have to believe in yourself, but you also have to take risks. What seems like risk. A lot of times, what anxiety sufferers think are risk really aren't risk, but it looks risky. But oftentimes, those risks lead to the rewards that you want and what you really desire in your life. And so, um, that's my take on a lot of this and how I dealt with balancing my emotions out and not believing everything I feel. Because like I said earlier, a lot of times you bottle up those emotions, you start to feel those symptoms in your body and all that, and then you start to think you have a physical health problem. You go to the doctor tells you everything's fine, but you just don't really believe it because and that causes a lot of conflict too, that tug of war, because you're constantly wondering. And I hear people all the time. I used to be one of these people. They go to the doctor and they like, the doctor told me I'm fine, but I just keep feeling the same way. Well, it's because there's something internally you need to address. It's a mental, emotional problem most of the time, even maybe in spiritual as well. It's all connected. And so, um, and you have to be honest with yourself. And I say it all the time. You have to be honest with yourself. You got to write on paper, what am I really thinking about deep down inside? And you got to let that stuff out. But understanding your emotions is very key. And so, right now, I'm going to play this video by my man Aaron Cartwright. He really breaks down just the emotions and how we go high and how we go low, but also how they kind of help each other in a way, and how it kind of balances you out. And so I'm gonna let Aaron explain it here. I'm even gonna sit back and watch it myself and kind of relearn some things because I like this. I've watched this video a couple times. I really like everything he says, so I'm gonna take some notes as well. And then when I come back, I'm gonna give you guys three key things, real quick, um, going along with the video that have kind of really helped me um, when times where I need to balance myself out emotionally. So, yeah, without further ado, my man Aaron Cartwright. Go find him on Facebook, on Instagram. I think he's on X too. Yeah, this is YouTube channel as well. I'll link this video below. Go subscribe to him. And yeah, here's my man Aaron Cartwright. Enjoy.
Hey guys, I've already touched on a bit of this, what I'm about to go into, but I think it's so important that I'm going to re-say what I've already said a bit and add a little bit more to it. So with emotions, you already understand now that the universe does not provide one without the other. There's always a negative and a positive, right? If you've come this far and you don't understand that yet, go back until it hits home. Don't even go to this yet. You must understand that there's always a good and a bad. There's always a right and a wrong. There's always a left and a right. There's always a dark and a light. There's always two things happening at once. They're entangled. All right? Emotions are exact same. Your emotions are entangled. You can't go up without down at the same time. All right? Now, this might be a lot to take in. I'll just do a simple one. This is equilibrium, all right? This is the balance line, all right? Most people want to be happy, and they're avoiding being sad. Most people try to be happy. This is just an example for emotions. Most people try to be happy, and including me. I wanted to be. This was me before I did all this work. I was so happy. I try to be happy. I try to be positive. I try to be positive on the outside, but deep on the inside, I was crumbling and I wasn't feeling very positive, which made me want to try to be more positive. Didn't work too well. The thing was, I was trying to be happy and I was trying to avoid being sad. But the higher up I got, the lower I went. And the lower I went, the higher up I tried to get. The higher up I went, the lower I went. And I was on a vicious cycle. And some would call this depression, anxiety, whatever. This is a lot of shit can come from this because you're on a massive roller coaster of emotions. It's draining. It's not pleasant. It feels like, there's a quote from the Buddha, I think it is, that says, those who are trying to avoid the unavoidable those trying to avoid the unavoidable have the most suffering, something like that. Because you can't avoid the unavoidable, which is down here. You can't avoid it. Because you're trying to go for up here. You're trying to avoid the unavoidable and attain the unattainable. I think that's what it is. Those who avoid the unavoidable and try to attain the unattainable is the source of human suffering. All right? Because you can't have this without that. All right? You want to be here. Now, like I said in other videos, I'm not saying have a boring life where you don't feel emotions. Emotions are great. Like, it's great. But I have a problem with emotions when they're out of hand. And you've got a fantasy that you're going to have a positive without a negative. That's when I've got an issue. Because what happens then is you turn into manic. You have manic states. You go bipolar. You go crazy, right? You can't live like that. You can't live like that. It's not controlled at all. There's no regulation there. It's out of control. It's out of control. So you want to have a more balanced emotional regulation. And like I said, I definitely love having fun, love being happy and all that. But I don't seek to be so high because I don't worry about when I'm sad. I'm sad. I'm cool with that. Like I'm not like I'm cool with that. I'm not trying to avoid it. Which when you stop trying to avoid the unavoidable, guess what happens? You actually don't go so low. The natural thing is you don't go so low because you're not trying to avoid it. You're not trying to attain this, which is unattainable, happiness all the time, and you're not trying to avoid the unavoidable. All right, and the same goes with all emotions: happy, joy, whatever positive emotions you're trying to seek all the time. That's why positive thinking alone doesn't work. Positive thinking is really delusional because you're trying to think positive all the time. You're going to set yourself up for failure. If you haven't already done that, I guarantee you will with positive thinking. Why? Because I've done that. I know plenty of other people have done that too, which I get it. When you're feeling so negative, the natural thing is to start to want to be positive. Like that's natural. I get it. But it's not long term. It does not work. Right? It doesn't work. It's not real. It's not, there's no, the universal laws are that everything's in balance at the same time. And I'll get more into at the same time later because that might be a little bit of a bitter, not bitter, big pill to swallow. But there are simultaneously happy and sad going on at the same time. Okay, if you don't believe me, we'll go deeper into that later. All right. But I just want to go into that just to make sure you know before we start using the tools and maybe just have a look at your life and have a real honest, be really brutally honest. I did it. I was trying to be happy and it didn't work. Right? Because deep inside, here's a quick test. And this is one of my mentors, Dr. John Demartini, does this. He will go to crowds and he'll say, okay, you want to be happy all the time. Okay, great. So if I ask you, because by the way, we have a inbuilt thermostat telling us it's like a bullshit meter. So if I went up to you and I said, you're always happy, you're never sad. You're always kind, you're never cruel. You're always giving, you're never taking. You're always up, you're never down. All right? You most likely your bullshit meter will go, well, that doesn't seem right. That doesn't seem right. Something in there will tell you. Then if I did the opposite, if I said, okay, you're always sad, you're never happy. You're always down, you're never up. You're always angry, you're never calm. Your bullshit meter will go, it's not really true either. All right? But if I said to you, sometimes you're happy, sometimes you're sad. Sometimes you're cruel, sometimes you're kind. Sometimes you're up, sometimes you're down. Sometimes you're giving, sometimes you're taking. Sometimes you're fun, sometimes you're serious. Most likely you'd be like, that's more like it, right? You got a thermostat going, Why? Because it's more balanced. You're never always sad. You're never always sad, but you're never always happy. It's just not right. It's not true. So your intuition's trying to tell you what's right. You can feel it. Okay? And that's why a lot of this stuff will start to make sense and you'll feel it in your heart and you go, that makes sense. It makes sense because it's balanced. Okay? So guys, that's it for that one. We'll see you in the next video. And I don't think I missed anything out there.
All right, so that's my man Aaron. Shout out to Aaron, my friend. So shout out to you, Aaron. Great video. But I love what he said there. You can't avoid the unavoidable. And make sure my mic's on. All right. You can't avoid the unavoidable. And that's something I had to learn. Like I said, I was avoiding certain things, avoiding certain interactions because of if I didn't feel a certain way, it wasn't perfect. But it's like Aaron said, I had to learn that myself. That what helped me move on in my life and start to get back to doing, living normally was just it's okay to not feel okay, number one, but it's okay to feel sad, and you can still go out to dinner that night. You know, you can see it's okay to feel happy or angry or whatever. You can feel tired. You can feel full of energy. You can feel both. You know what I mean? Either one, but you can still stay in the middle and live your life. You know what I mean? Your life doesn't have to be controlled. You don't have to try to be a certain person all the time. You don't have to try to be happiness or be sad. It's like you said there with the positive thinking that people try to think their way out of, their anxiety. Good luck. You can't mentally uh, overcome anxiety and disorders and panic disorders. It's just not going to happen. If people did, there'd probably be no anxiety. So it just doesn't happen. Unless people just be completely honest, let's people out there with a hardened conscience that maybe did a lot of things and they're just so hardened, in their conscience and that they don't really care about anything or anybody, and so they always try to fool themselves. But that's a whole other thing. But I, it's like you said there, and it's kind of going back to what I said earlier. It's why I said it's very key who runs your mind, who runs your life. Going back to what I said Friday, even that show, kind of the same thing. Who runs your mind, who runs your life, and you know, if you're constantly somebody that's trying to aim to be a certain person all the time, that because you feel like you have to, or because the world says you have to, or um, because that's how you feel like you'll fit in, but it's not really who you are, then you're probably going to feel a lot of these emotions and a lot of these, very high, very low, and kind of like that vicious cycle, like you pointed out there. And this is why a lot of people constantly find themselves in the same predicament. They go in a new phase for a little while, then they come back to right where they started. They go into another phase for a little while, and they come back right to where they started again. And each time they come back to where they started, they go in a deeper hole, a deeper hole, a deeper hole, a deeper hole, to the point where you know people feel like they don't know what they can do anymore. Which is unfortunate. So e- everything is reversible, and that's number one. I want to say that after that, everything is reversible in your life, but also you get to choose how you want to respond to certain things. Doesn't mean you'll be perfect at it right away. It takes time. It's like systematic desensitization. So it says systematic. You gradually you want to get to here, but to get there, you got to take the smaller steps to get there, and eventually you get to point A to point, C, let's say, or point B, whatever. And so, um, we'll say A to C, right? We'll say C is the big term goal, B is like the middle goal, and A is where you're starting from. We'll say it like that. ABC. And so, uh, the three things that I want to point out that have helped me that helped me balance out emotionally are three things I wanted to share with. And so, number one, oftentimes what caused a lot of my anxiety and stuff wasn't really I was focusing on the symptoms itself. There was stuff deep down inside that were causing the symptoms, right? I was still dwelling on the past. I was still dwelling on something that was, why was I trying to avoid this incident or this dinner with, like I said earlier, dinner as an example. Why was I trying to avoid certain things? And I had to go deep and realize a lot of my emotional wounds and just the things that weren't really healed and I didn't really let out, things that I was holding in still. I was, holding in that emotional baggage and a lot of those things that from my past that were bothering me still. And so, how do I do that? I had to look at things from a helicopter view, almost like from a security camera viewpoint. And I had to look down at the situation. Say, all right, let me really observe this here and be honest with myself. What am I really thinking about? How is this affecting my life? How's it affecting my emotions? How's it affecting me mentally? And what can I do? And then eventually, I took that once I found out what that root cause was, or whatever what that situation, whatever it was that was bothering you deep down inside, you're thinking about every day. Maybe there's something that a desire you have in your life you haven't met, or just or something about the future you're wondering about, a future situation, whatever it is, right? You identify why, how am I feeling about it? What are my fears about it, or what am I holding on to? Whatever it is, why do I feel sad about that from the past? And then it's what labels maybe am I still carrying from this, or how is this affecting my life? Right? Look at all this from a helicopter view, and then you take that and you reframe it. So that'd be number one. Would be reframing the thought, reframing, which helps reframe helps you balance out emotionally better. Reframing the thought will help you balance out the emotion. The emotion. So if you're feeling angry, what are you angry about? right? And then really go deep into that, especially if you're on that vicious cycle, like you said, where it's not saying every time you feel anger or something, you got to go do this. What I'm saying is, this is for people out there who are on that vicious cycle, like you said, are constantly finding themselves in the same loop and can't figure out why they struggle with certain emotions and certain things. And so, number one would be reframing the thought, right? Reframe the thought. How can I take this thought, look at it for what it was, accept it, and redirect myself to a more positive? I don't say positive, but just more of a um, where I can move forward in a positive manner from it, where it no longer affects my life. So reframe would be number one. And you can go to Dennis Simsek, the anxiety guy. His channel is a free framing playlist. Go check that out. There's a lot of great ones on there, so go use those. You look for some online. Number two would be communicate, but also communicating with your good support people, and journaling. I put them both together. So journaling and communicating with a good support group. This is very key because it's good to find good people that you can communicate with and not feel isolated. The worst thing you could do in any situation, really, when it comes to your mental health, anxiety, and all that, and they're just in life, really, is just to isolate yourself. You should never really isolate yourself. I don't think that's healthy, and we're not meant to be isolated. We're not meant to be away from people. We're meant to help people. We're meant to have relationships with people, right? And it's important to find good relationships in your life. If you're in a relationship, or either maybe with a girlfriend, or maybe even a spouse, or you live with somebody, or whatever it may be. If there's a relationship out there that's dragging you down, that's where you have to be honest with yourself. You have to be able to um, feel like it's safe enough to tell that person how you really feel, or do you feel, um, you know, I mean, ultimately, it's up to you. I mean, you know what makes you happy. If you feel, not say happy, but you know what is healthy for you. That's the word I'm looking for. If something's healthy for you, or if it's not. And so, a lot of times by journaling, though, finding good support people, communicating. But again, if you don't have that good support person at home or wherever, if you don't feel like you can trust that person, or you don't feel like you feel safe enough to tell them certain things, then you need to find somebody you communicate with and let that out. And journaling is great. Journaling to yourself, writing out the emotions, maybe taking some of that and sharing it with that person, whether it's a counselor, or a life coach, or a good friend, or a pastor, or whoever, right? Everybody, you can find somebody. God will send you somebody. Just pray and ask him, I promise. And so, because God oftentimes will use people of the flesh to help you with what you need. You know, it's important. That's why I said it's important to be around people. Don't ever isolate yourself. So, find journaling and communicating with good support would be my second one, and the third one would be mindfulness. Go to your favorite park. It's nice out now. Go out to a park, walk around in nature. Observing the external environment. Pray. Take time to pray and meditate. Things like that. Go work out. Um, Go hang out with friends, or maybe good family members. Go hang out with them. You know what I mean? Have fun. Um, Go outside and do maybe outside work your house. Do some gardening, do some lawn work, or whatever you like. Things that just whatever you enjoy doing and takes you out of your mind and more externally. More being more mindful, more just acting in line really with who you really want to be, and acting in line with the things that truly give you that inner peace. And I would say mindfulness is very key. And so those are the three things for me. Reframing the thought, journaling, slash communicating with a good support person or people, and then mindfulness. And a lot of times too, going back to my point with the journaling, the communicate, really more with communicating with a good support person, and all these things, mindfulness. You have to really look at your lifestyle as well. Oftentimes, the lifestyle you could be living could be what's hindering you the most. Lifestyle is very key. And so, in the way you live your life every day, day in and day out, who you strive to be in your life, who runs your life, how you think, how you, uh, your worldview on things, and how you just view things in life in general is very important in your lifestyle. Just your overall lifestyle is what I'm getting at. And so, sometimes you have to really sit and with your journaling, really look back at some things and maybe say, maybe I need to get rid of this, maybe replace it with something else that's better, or with this. So I think examining your lifestyle, I think oftentimes can be very key as well, and helping you emotionally as well with your mind, mentally, emotionally, and spiritually will help you physically as well. And so, um, Yeah, and overall, the reason why I think it's good to reframe, have that communication, the journaling, the mindfulness, it projects safety. Oftentimes, when you feel emotionally unbalanced, you're in that vicious cycle, like Aaron said, where you're having a bad day, whatever it is. It may not just be physically either; it could be mentally or just whatever it is. You want to feel safe. You want to feel secure, right? Could be in a relationship, could be your job, could be with your health. You have your hypochondriac or whatever you got going on in your life. Anything you want to feel safe. You should be able to feel safe to communicate with people. It's all around safety. And so all these things, those three things I mentioned, what Aaron was talking about as well, the understanding, the emotions help you project safety. And that's what helped me. And then the more I've started to apply those things in my life, I started to say, or started to see, excuse me, see, Joseph, it is safe to feel a certain way and still go do this. You know what I mean? It is safe to be in this environment. It is safe to interact with people. It is safe to put yourself out there. It is safe to, um, you know, do the things you enjoy doing. It's safe to do things. It's okay to it's safe to go into the unknown. You know, really. And so safety is very key. And so, or how do I want to say it? Trust and safety and knowing you're safe is very key is what I'm getting at. You guys know what I mean. Yeah. But yeah, definitely that's very key though. And that helped me, like I said, more than anything was once I started to see safety in things, start to see the truth in things and what things really are, then I started to say, you know what? I can't let go. I don't have to hold on to that. That fear is an illusion. I can't let go. So that's all I got for you guys today. Hope you guys enjoyed, took something from this. Please leave a comment below if you took anything from this you want to add to this. Please leave your feedback below, like I said earlier. And shout out to Aaron. Go subscribe to him, and I'll link that video down below. Like, subscribe, share all that good stuff, and I'll see you guys in the next one. I'm out of here. Gone.